Hi guys, it's time for my annual look at what classic cars you should think about getting into or investing into over the next 12 months. Now, a couple of years ago, I did a video, 17 classic cars to buy, and that video did so well, it actually became the top video, I think, on my channel. I'll put the link above below. And then I did a follow-up video, which also performed quite well, which was basically 22 cars to buy in 2022. So this time I thought I'll do 23 cars to buy in 2023. And here they come.
Brown car guy.
Okay, so for the purposes of this, what I've done is I've looked at Haggerty. What is Haggerty? Haggerty is an insurance company, but they're also well known for the amount of effort, time, dedication that they put into looking at classic car market, the classic car valuations, what's going up, what's going down, all of that sort of stuff. And every year they put out what they call the bull market list on both sides of the Atlantic, one in America and one over here. And there's 10 cars in each of those lists. So what I'm going to do is I'll go through those lists. That'll give us 20 cars, and then I'll give you 3 top tips of my own at the end of that. Okay, so we're going to kick off with Haggerty UK. Haggerty UK, the first car that they've got up is the Audi TT Quattro Mark 1, the Audi TT Quattro Sport Mark 1 from 2005 to 2006. Now, this Sport certainly looks the part, although it's got the 4-cylinder engine instead of the 3.2 V6. Now, Haggerty liked the TT because I think they recommended it. I think it was either last year's list or the list before. They've also recommended it. But the TT, I think, especially that first one, is an instant icon. I mean, the styling was unique. Everything about the car at the time was different and stood out, and it became an instant hit at the time. Less so, I think, with the generation that followed, but that first one certainly stood out, and it's definitely going to be a classic, if not already is. So this is a logical suggestion. Interest globally does seem to have increased on this, but it's only fractionally. A top example of that particular car, which is the TT Quattro Sport, is about £15,000. I'm not entirely convinced by this one yet, but having said that, like I said, the TT, that Mark 1 TT in general, I believe is going to be a design classic. And so if you really like the car, and if you really like this Quattro Sport, although I would always go for the 3.2 V6 personally, then get one and put it away. It's definitely worth doing. Number 2 on the list is the Austin 7 from 1923 to 1939. So the Austin 7 was in the same vein as the Ford Model T for this side of the pond, if you like. Just 7 horsepower, but it had seating for 4, and you could buy one for £165. It's about £7,000 in today's money. And if you want to buy one today, then it's about the same, maybe a little bit more. They say you got to spend at least £8,700 up to about £21,000 for the best examples out there. And there are plenty around. So you've got plenty of choice as well. And not only that, but there's a good support network for them as well. So there's plenty of these that run around, they go to shows, they go to events, and there's lots of companies that actually will provide you part servicing and maintenance for those cars and restoration services. So it does make a lot of logic when if you want to go for something that is that old. They're not really for me. They're a bit too tiny, but they are very cute little classics. So yeah, definitely one to look at. Number 3 on the list is the Bentley Turbo R, 1985 to 1997. Oh, now you're talking. This is a beast, and it's definitely something that had my attention back in 1985, I gotta be honest. Essentially, this was like a Rolls Royce, but on steroids. That's what this was. 328 brake horsepower, 400 pounds for the torque. You could basically get 2 tons to 60 miles per hour in less than 7 seconds and reach 140 miles per hour. And it was like doing all of that while sitting in the smoking room of a luxury manor. That's basically what you were doing. You're going to need between £7,700 to £23,500 to get one of these. Haggerty admits that the average prices are actually down from the 2020 peak, which was £16,800, that's for the average price, to just £15,400 now, but prices are back on the rise. I'll tell you what, if you get a good one of these for under 20k, and do keep in mind that these do need a lot of work, attention, maintenance, and costly maintenance, but if you can do all of that, then this is definitely one worth having. Number 4 is the Citroen BX from 1982 to 1994. The BX that Haggerty actually photographed, so the images that you see here is actually a diesel estate car. Sharp lines, cool angles, that's all there. It was very eye-catching in the 80s. It was really stood out. But let me show you this thing, because this is the BX19 GTI. And this was a family hatchback that was also kind of like a hot hatch, and it shared its drivetrain pretty much with the Peugeot 205 GTI. The Pug was pretty, but this thing looked like it had a arrived from the future. It was incredible. Prices are actually slowly creeping up on these, according to Haggerty. They quote a range, it's a big range though, from 800 to 8,000 pounds if you can find a good one. But I suspect that if you find one for 800 pounds, you really shouldn't be buying that one, because it all depends on condition. If you can get a BX 19 GTI for 8K, according to this, then you should just snap it up. Number 5 on the list is the Ford Fiesta Mk1. This is the first generation of the Fiesta, 1977 to 1983. Now, the Fiesta has just officially been killed off by Ford, which is sad. Sob. I mean, it's one of those cars that was a part of the fabric of British motoring history and culture. So it's really sad to see that little thing go, especially the Fiesta ST, which was the epitome of a pocket rocket. So it's no surprise that Fiestas will start to immediately become collectible, because there's such a huge fan following for these. They will get a cult following. They will become collectible classics, and so prices have started to go up. And they're talking about price range between £1,400 to £19,100. And they're saying that the average prices or the average values of these cars are up 19% since COVID. So there's definitely a little bit of a rise going on there. So definitely worth looking at. If you can find a good early Fiesta, buy it, put it away. Number 6, Lamborghini Diablo, 1990 to 2001. I actually suggested this in my previous video, so I've been wondering if Haggerty had been watching my videos, because that was actually one of my suggestions. There's 2 important things that you need to know about a Diablo. First of all, it's arguably the last Lamborghini, like the actual proper Lamborghini. This was before Audi basically bought it, and so the Diablo is full Lamborghini DNA. Secondly, a certain generation X, for example, remember this car not only as a successor to the incredible Countach, which was the poster car of several generations for many years, but also as the car that featured in that classic Jamiroquai Cosmic Girl video. Who can forget that purple Lamborghini? Anyway, average values are nearly at £180,000. There's a significant rise expected in 2023. Number 7 on the list is the Lotus Elise 2000 to 2010. This is the S2 model, and you know what? Again, Haggerty, have you been watching my videos? Because I suggested this. I think it was in last year's video, and the reason I suggested it was because obviously it was killed off in 2021. The Elise, Evora, Exige, they were all killed off, sadly. Awesome cars. I love those cars. I mean, this is me speaking, not Haggerty now. There's just nothing more engaging, exciting, and actually eccentric as a Lotus Elise this side of a Caterham 7. And Caterham 7, of course, also has Lotus DNA in it. Yeah, I mean, you really can't quite comprehend just how exciting and just how awesome this car is to drive until you actually drive one. You know, the steering, even when you're going straight on what would look like a smooth road, is constantly talking to you. It's just incredible. There's just nothing like it. If you can get one, get one. And I think I agree with the choice of the Series 2, because all the little foibles and issues about the little things that they had with the first one were ironed out. And also, along the line of the Series 2, they introduced the Toyota engine, which of course is more reliable, so definitely worth looking at. Spend between £12,000 and £30,000 is what they're saying, and if you do that, all I'm saying is you'll never regret it. Number 8 on the list is the Mercedes-Benz SL500 R129 1989 to 2001. Hang on. Somebody Haggerty is definitely subscribing to my channel, because I just recently reviewed an R129, although it wasn't a 500, it was a 320 SL, and I did say in that video that this is one to buy and put away now, because prices are still reasonable and affordable, and for sure at some point the prices on those are going to creep up. It's going to become a classic. So regarding the SL500, Haggerty reckon that they are between £7,800 and £32,000, or just over £32,000 to get a good one. There's plenty around, so pick and choose, buy wisely. They're complex cars. Do look carefully, find the best that you can buy, but they are still out there for very good prices. I reckon not even that much, but 20 grand will get you a really good one. Average prices are rising by 20% since the pandemic, and they reckon that there will be another 20% rise by the next couple of years. Now this is an interesting one, the Saab 99 Turbo 1978 to 1980. This is number 9 on their list. Now this adorable little Saab is exactly the type of vehicle that gave the now dead brand the legions of followers that it has. It's got almost a cultish following, hasn't it? It's an early proponent of turbocharging. So even before the 80s, when turbocharging really became a thing, this car had turbocharging. Black and red Saab 99 Turbo. I mean, come on, that is just awesome. It defies convention, but at the same time it leads the pack, and it's always unwittingly drawing attention because the styling is just so unique on these things. So if you can find a good one, snap it up. They are quite rare now, to be honest. I mean, they according to Haggerty, Haggerty, there's probably about less than 100 left in the UK. Prices are between £4,000 and £21,000. Concourse examples will be knocking on the door of 30k. Number 10th on the Haggerty UK bull market list, the Triumph Spitfire, 1962 to 1980. It's a classic British roadster, this one. It's hard not to fall for cars like these. I mean, they're just so evocative, isn't it? A nice car like that on a nice day with the roof down, it's just bliss, right? It's very popular with the baby boomer generation. It's sort of the car that they relate to. There's plenty of them about, plus there's a great network that supports Triumph roadsters, so you won't have any issues owning and running one of those. It's a classic car, you will, but you see what I mean. It's like relatively easier to run. Prices range from $2,800 for something that you probably will be working on a fair bit to about $28,000 for something you'll be working on a bit less. But values are up 27% since 2020, so it's definitely worth grabbing. So let's move now to the Haggerty US list. So again, at number 1 we have another Saab. What's going on here? But this is a new one. In fact, it's actually the successor to the 99. It is the 1985 to 93 Saab 900 Turbo. To me, this is sort of more representative of Saab when I think of Saab, because it's sort of more my generation. It's stylish, it's different, it stood out. It was always quite classy, these things. We're going to switch to dollars in terms of the prices, because this is the prices quoted from Haggerty in America, so I'm going to start quoting some dollars instead. Basically, you're looking at a range of $14,500 up to nearly $30,000. Values have risen 33% since 2019. Number 2 on the list is the 1991 to 98 Suzuki Cappuccino, the K-car little roadster coupe hardtop thingy, whatever. We've just got to pause for applause here for a minute, because this is actually the first Japanese car on this year's Haggerty bull market list. Yay! You know what? And it's well deserving, even though this is as small as Japanese cars get. In fact, I would say it's less a cappuccino, more shot of espresso, if you see what I mean. It's fun though, and very, very clever. It's over-engineered even. In fact, Suzuki didn't actually make money on these. They made a bit of a loss on these cars, but thank God they made them, because they were utterly brilliant. They're a bit tight for tall people like me, so I probably wouldn't fit too comfortably in them. But if you can fit, then you should definitely get one. We're talking $4,000 to $22,000, but budget at least, I would say $10,000 for a good one. Number 3 on the list is the 1968 to 1970 AMC AMX. Now, here's one that I don't actually agree with, let's be honest. The AMC AMX was apparently something of a savior for AMC, and the design, I gotta admit, does look way ahead of its time. Remember, this car was conceived, designed, and offered on sale in the 60s, but it very much looks like a 70s car, doesn't it? Well, having said that though, I still think that in profile it looks a bit weird. It looks a bit squashed, probably because the chassis was actually shortened, because it only had 2 seats, but it did have V8 engines in the front. Values are up 29% since 2019, and you'd expect to pay from $13,500 up to $53,000 nearly. On the other hand, if they had selected the 1974 AMC Hornet X hatchback that Roger Moore's Bond did that famous barrel roll jump over a bridge in The Man with the Golden Gun, I'd have been totally behind that one. Number 4 on the list is the 2004 to 2010 Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren. Now, there's no doubt that this is a very special car. It's a real-world Batmobile created by no less luminaries than Mercedes and McLaren. I mean, these are two companies that really know what they're doing about. When they get together, they created one of the best supercars ever. You know, Providence doesn't come better than that, right? $500,000 to buy when they were new, 600 brake horsepower and over 200 miles per hour. It's one of the world's most underrated supercars, let's be honest. Values today, we're talking about $200,000 up to, again, that $500,000 mark. It may be a bit too early to call these a classic. It was very potent. I remember driving one of these, actually. Very potent, very easy to pedal, very fast, and extremely comfortable. Having said that, I also remember that the SLS left more of an impression on me. Number 5 on the list is the 1984 to 85 Toyota pickup Hilux 4x4 SR5. Now, you remember Back to the Future, right? The other hero car of the movie was Marty McFly's Toyota, the black Toyota pickup that he gets at the end, where he almost has a race and then realizes why he's got to stop responding or taking the bait of being called a chicken. No Hilux has ever looked cooler ever than that one. Not even the Arctic truck car, the Hilux that the Top Gear team took to the North Pole, wasn't it? It's an unbreakable machine. It thrives on hard work and abuse. It'll outlive us all. Hiluxes are like cockroaches, and so they're definitely a worthy addition to collectible cars. We're talking about between $6,600 to $35,000 if you want one of these. But best thing to do is not to get a workhorse unless you're going to spend a lot of money on it. Buy something that's already been restored or looked after. For that, you'll probably spend between $25,000 and $30,000. Number 6 on the list is a 2001 to 2010 Lamborghini Murcielago, depends how you want to pronounce it. Now, this thing is a beast. There's no question about it. It's a real angry bull, and it comes in that lineage of Miura, Countach, Diablo, and then of course this one. But Diablo is already on the UK list, as I've already mentioned, so I'm a bit surprised that this one is on there. It's still a proper supercar for sure, but I think it's a little bit early to be calling it a classic. Nonetheless, it's a desirable thing. You should get one if you can. They're talking about values between 191,000 to 382,000. A little bit of Audi DNA. It's a bit Audi-fied, this one, but it's still, I would say it's still, especially the SV Murcielago. I remember driving it at the Autodrome and feeling like it would kill me. I mean, it was still a bit wild and crazy. So yeah, definitely a little bit of old school Lamborghini DNA survived into that one. Number 7 on the list is a 2003-2008 Nissan 350Z. Now, the Nissan 350Z was a brilliant little car. Solid, planted, fast, fun to drive, and the styling was I would say it's aged nicely at the time. It's weird, the styling on the 350, because it looked amazing when it came out. Then when the 370 came out, it kind of aged very quickly. But now when you look back at it again, all of a sudden it's looking good again. So it's kind of weird how that's happened. We're talking a car that ended in 2008, so it's just 14 years ago. So again, you can ask that question of, is it even a modern classic yet? It's sort of borderline, I would say. The values of these quoted are also, I think, a little high from what Haggerty have said, maybe in America, because they're saying $16,500 up to $55,000, whereas here you can get them for £5,000 to £9,000. Number 8 on the list is the 1992 to 2006 AM General Hummer H1. So this car is a war veteran. I mean, I know that the term legend, I overuse it, I know, but when you apply legend to something like a Hummer H1, it fully applies. Then when they did the civilian versions, which was basically, I suppose, inspired by Arnold Schwarzenegger, because he started driving around Beverly Hills, I suppose, isn't it? Then all of a sudden people were like, oh, I've got to have one of those. And they were priced around $100,000. Now, Haggerty reckons the prices are actually, the values are rising on these. They put values at between $44,000 to $146,000. I'm not so sure. If you're talking a really good one, nicely presented, nicely customized, nicely civilianized with leather and luxuries and all the rest of it, then possibly. But I remember seeing a whole field of these in Dubai just lying there, you know, and I know that at the time, for sure, you could have picked them up for about 30,000 dirhams. So I can't imagine them being much more than that. Number 9 on the list is the 2001-2004 Chevrolet Corvette Z06. Another one from the early 2000s. So again, is it quite classic, modern classic yet? Maybe, maybe not. Perhaps too young to be on the list of appreciating classics, but this C5 Corvette Z06, so it is a little bit special. Didn't drive the Z06. I drove a C5 in the UK actually, which felt like a big room on wheels here. But I've driven most of the Corvettes, and I drove the successor to that, a C6 Z06 in Dubai. I drove up Jebel Huit, amazing handling. It was a more compact car, more sportier feeling car than the C5 was. C5, I would say, is probably more of a grand tour. Reasonable values though. They're talking about $13,000 up to $50,000. I'd say spend at least $35,000 and get yourself a really nice one of those. So rounding out the top 10 of the Haggerty US bull market list, we've got the 2008 to 2015 Audi R8. So the Audi R8 itself will also, actually the current one will end production next year, and it's been a fantastic car. Now the first car was a real standard setter. Basically, Audi owned Lamborghini at the time. They spent a ton load of money and time, investment, energy into creating the Gallardo, which then turned out to be Lamborghini's best-selling car at that time. And then you take the V10 that they had in there, you take the drivetrain, and they go, well, you know, why shouldn't we use this? So they created the R8. And the R8 was something like, I would say, the modern day actual spiritual successor to the original Honda NSX, in the sense that it was easy to live with, easy to drive. You could daily drive that thing. You can daily drive that thing. I know people that do, and it was just a brilliant all-rounder. And yet, when you found yourself on a nice road, you went for it, and it was a proper supercar. It had the performance, it had the handling, it had the style. I mean, it felt special. Definitely a future classic, especially that original one with that blade on the side, really iconic. They're talking about they're actually quoting very high prices. They're quoting $91,000 up to $215,000. But in the UK, you can pick up a pretty good early gen R8 for about £35,000. I would say go for it, definitely. Now we're down to my 3 suggestions, and number 1, I'm going to say Dodge Charger. Now, the original Dodge Charger, I'm talking about 69, 70, 68, that era Charger, like the Bullet car, like the one that was featured in the Bullet movie. According to Haggerty US, the values of these have gone up by 28% over the year. Prices are depending, of course, on the age and condition. A lot of these cars are modified, resto-modded, customized. Any car that's been in a Fast and Furious movie you've seen, they've always been heavily modified. They barely even resembles Chargers anymore. But they are definitely, I'm going to use the word legends again, they're definitely legends, they're definitely iconic. They're huge, they're massive for the UK, but nonetheless, they really stand out. They're sexy as hell, so definitely one to get into. Okay, my second top choice for next year is the Volkswagen Beetle. I don't mean the reborn Volkswagen Beetle, but the original, classic, best-selling, iconic, legendary Volkswagen Beetle, the star of things like Herbie the Love Bug. Now, Volkswagen Beetle was always very, very popular throughout the 60s, 70s. In fact, they were still building them until, I think, what, 10, 15 years ago in South America. But I think people kind of went off them a little bit. I think a certain TV show, Top Gear, had something to do with that, because, you know, they do these drive things, these epic drive adventures that they do, and they all go out and they buy a car and they go on this drive, and then they always threaten with the fact that if their car fails, then there's a backup car. So in one of the episodes, the backup car was a Beetle, and they were like, oh no, we don't want to get into that pile of crap. And they was like, well, I thought that was terribly unfair, because the most reliable go anywhere, do anything car on the planet is the Volkswagen Beetle. If anything is going to survive the endurance that they would put those cars through, it would be a Volkswagen Beetle. The Volkswagen Beetle, I think, now is starting to look cool again. And again, there's plenty about. It was a best-selling car. Not as many as they used to be, because, you know, many have died, sadly, but many have been modified, customized, and, you know, the Beetle chassis was a hugely popular donor platform for many kit cars and customized cars and all of that sort of stuff. So a lot of that kind of stuff has happened as well. So in that case, there aren't as many Beetles as there used to be, but there's still plenty around. Now, the thing to do is to make sure that you find one that is as original. Well, you know, you go down 2 routes with the classic Beetle. You either find one that's as original as possible and as old as possible, so it's not like the reborn Mexican ones, but the original German ones, and then you go for something that's really classic and concourse and worth preserving, or you go for something that you can use and have fun with, in which case you could go for a resto mod, you could go for a customized one, you could go for something that was newer but still has the classic shape but maybe has air conditioning and stuff like that, you know, or you could change the engine. I love it when they are slightly wider wheels on them with the racing tires on them, slightly lowered. They look very, very cool. Values are up about 17% on those, again, according to Haggerty. So a blank canvas classic car that you can either put into concourse condition and take to shows, or daily drive and just laugh your head off. And finally, the ultimate car to buy next year for enjoyment, for driving, for investment, for coolness, for class, for reliability, for ruggedness, for something that you can enjoy, use and show off in as well. This car. The one that I'm in. I'm in a 1989 BMW E30 325i SE, but basically any E30. They're on their way up. In fact, again, Haggerty admits that they're up about 18% over the course of the last year. And in fact, you know, these cars actually celebrated their 40th anniversary. They first came out in 1982. So last year, or 2022, they celebrated their anniversary. Now I've had this car now for 10 months. And it's had its problems, but classic cars cars will have problems. I mean, that's inevitable. And also, I'm probably using it a little bit more than most classic car owners would use it. I probably take this out about 3-4 times a week, and most classic car owners would do that less. But this was a good one. Bought it at auction. I had a thick file of history, all the documentation, all my blog on this car is on browncarguy.com, and there's also a playlist on my channel which you can also check out. But these cars, I mean, they're icons of the 80s. I mean, you know, if you were a yuppie basically, if you were on your way up in the 80s, then the car to have, you'd start with a Volkswagen Golf, ideally a GTI, and then you'd move up to one of these, and then ultimately you wanted to get a Porsche 911. That was sort of the pinnacle of yuppie motoring achievements. Then maybe a Ferrari, but Porsche 911 would do the trick. So underneath the Porsche 911 set this. So if you were in the executive car park, you wanted to roll up in one of these, and they were absolutely awesome. And the thing about them was that the build quality was stunning. I mean, even the interior on this car is just absolutely solid. Everything works, everything fits, you know, it's absolutely stupendous. They were pretty much hand built at the time. BMW, when they created this car, they didn't really expect the huge number of sales they ultimately got. So partly the car was hand built. This is why the one that succeeded it wasn't as good in terms of quality as this one. This is why these ones still survive. You still see them. There's still plenty out there to choose from. And they're still reasonably priced. I mean, you can pick them up from 10, 12, 15 for a pretty good car and actually really enjoy it. The other thing about them is that they were genuinely, I mean, when BMW used to use the tagline, the ultimate driving machine, they weren't joking. These cars were genuinely fun to drive, and they remain. I tell you this, I can vouch for it. I used to have one in the 90s. I've driven this one again now for 10 months, and I can tell you it is as good today as it was back then. And this is coming from a motoring journalist that has driven everything. This car, the feel that you get, the interactivity that you get with the steering, the response that you get, the sensations that you get, it's just, the gear shift is just beautiful. The steering is just beautiful. The performance, you know, modern cars will run rings around it, but it feels quick, it feels torquey, it feels lusty. It's a great car. So there you go. That's probably my top choice for next year. And I'm not just saying that so that the values of this car will increase and I might make a bit of money on it. No, not at all. That's not my agenda at all. But it's a genuine bit of advice for you. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what cars you think should be the ones that people should be buying in 2023. Put those suggestions in the comments.
Brown car guy.
Hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please hit the like button and share this video as well if you can. And while you're at it, check out these guys who also sponsor my content. I am deeply grateful to them because it helps me to buy new equipment, put fuel in the cars, and yes, buy a cup of coffee. You can do the same. Just go here or right here on YouTube. Just hit these 3 little dots down here and click on thanks. Make sure you're signed in first. My content is free, but this is how you can help me keep it that way. I may even send you a gift. Oh, by the way, watch this next.